Yo guys, yo, back at it again now. Oh shoot, man, stepping in these bushlands. Damn guys, here we are in the middle of this freaking wild area. Yeah, so the topic of this video guys, is going to be about equality is a lie. This is a little bit this is very one thing actually, it's kind of like very easy to understand this type of topic that yeah, equality is pretty much a lie. It's a little bit too much bushwork here. The topic of this video though guys is going to be about that equality is a lie. That is the topic of this video. It's pretty much the topic of this video. That equality is a lie. It's so hard to talk about this right now. It's so hard to talk about this right now. And stuff like that. That's what I really want to get onto now, and it's I want to actually start to talk about this right now. That equality. Maybe if I turn this way, it might look a little bit more better. You get the hours like being in the wild bushland areas is so much better, man. What's like being in the wild bushland areas? The topic though of this video, guys, is going to be about equality. It's like a lie, basically, and stuff like that. And how do you even start this video? It's like a very difficult it's very difficult to even start to try and talk about this, man. It's very difficult to try and talk about this. It's because it's like so controversial and all that. So trying to talk about this, it's gonna cause a lot of issues if I attempt and try to talk about this. Flies and all that. It's so hard to even begin to talk about this topic because it is very controversial, because we do live in like a very in a world that's like very, very liberal and all that type of stuff, and like humanitarian, and that we want to make sure everyone feels good about themselves and all that type of stuff. And it's kind of, there's nothing wrong with that stuff. I do think that you should accept who you are, even if you have like some sort of disadvantages, like you might be born with some type of disability, whatever. Even if that's the case, I do think that you should honestly like still appreciate who you are as a person. But still equality is a lie. This like belief that this egalitarianism is like a form of like very, like we do like believe, a lot of us, we believe in like very extreme like forms of like egalitarianism, that we're all pretty much, what does that word mean, egalitarian? It's pretty much that we're all the same basically and stuff. It's just that we just need to be put in the right environments to become successful. It doesn't matter. The environment's the only thing that matters. It's not about who you are as a person, how you were born. It's just about the environment that you're in. That is like a little bit, there's some merit to that obviously, but still I do think that, because obviously if you like how you're born, that is actually very, very important actually. Honestly, I do think how you're born is actually super important, guys. That your certain characteristics, the genetics that you get dealt with, all of that is like so important and crucial. So that's what I don't just think that it's just about like the environment, because that's what that is like what a lot of modern like academics and scientists, so-called scientists and people that are like in academia, they do want to make it seem like it's just all about the environment that you're in. That's what determines everything. If you get put into the right environment, you're going to become super successful and all that type of stuff. It's all about the environment. I don't actually I'm not too, obviously I'm not a geneticist or a proper scientist or any of that, so what do I know about this? But it's kind of like, that is pretty much, isn't that the mindset, the mentality now in like so many different like academic circles, that it's not your genetics or how you're born, it's like, it's pretty much the environment that you get put in that determines quite a lot. And I do agree with that. I think that the environment's actually very super important, but equality is a lie. I still think that how you're born and the genetics that you get dealt with, that is actually also very, very important. It's like they're both like equally important. It's not like I'm saying that one's more better than the other, all that type of stuff. It's like they're on the same level, but still I think that it's that type of extreme egalitarianism, and that's like, where does that come from? It's so, equality is a lie. It's just, I honestly do think so, that it's like a very extreme form of like egalitarianism now. that the environment's all that matters. Nothing else really matters. It's just the environment. That's kind of like, to me, that seems like very nonsensical. Nonsensical, a little bit, kind of a little bit naive to believe in that it's not it's just all about the environment. It's not about how you are, how you're born as a person, or whatever the characters, the genes that you get given and all that type of stuff. It's not, none of that doesn't matter. It's just all the environment that determines everything. I think that's kind of a little bit, I think that's kind of so naively stupid if you believe in that. If you think it's just purely the environment, if you think it's purely just the environment that matters, you're so naively stupid if that's what you think. If you think that your genetics aren't very important or contributive. Do you know about like incel looksism and all that type of stuff? Like incels, like people that are like they're like this certain group of men. They're so ugly that no woman wants to touch them, and blah blah blah. And so they stay in. They don't get anything from women, and they stay on their own for the rest of their lives and all that, for most of their lives, etc. and stuff like that. I think there is some merit to that. I think, again, it's like equality is a lie. I think that how you're born, your characteristics, your genetics, all that is so important. 100% that's so important, because I think that determines quite a lot. I don't think it's just about like because again, we are like, it's like very much egalitarianism now. It's all about the environment. It's not about your who you are as a person and how you're born. Yeah, look into the whole thing about incels, looksism. What's that about, man? Looksism, incels, and all that type of stuff. There's like an online community of men that are very ugly and stuff, and they can't get anything and stuff, can't get any like intimacy from women and stuff, and so they're pretty much just like left on their own, and they can't get any intimacy and all that type of stuff, man. And they're pretty much just like isolated. The incel thing and stuff like that. It's very, very interesting, man. That whole community of people, and it does touch on that, and looksism and stuff like that, how you're born, your physical characteristics and all that type of stuff. I do think that if you're like shorter, I think that you get less respected. I do think so, 100%. I think that's true. If you're shorter, you get less respected and all that type of stuff. If you're taller, you get more respected. I think that's so true. That if you're shorter, you get less respected and all that type of stuff. I do actually think so. I think that's actually been scientifically proven and all that type of stuff, that if you're shorter, you get like less respected by people and all that. That's actually, I think that's so true, that especially if you're like a midget, you get less respected by people just because of how you are, your physical features and all that. See, and it's all subconscious as well. I think there were like a bunch of studies that are done proving this, that like your how you look and all that type of stuff, it kind of does determine people's like judgments about you and their first impressions, all that. It's all made by your physical appearance, and you can see equality is a lie. So if you like, cause like, just how you're born, like your height, something is like trivial, something so small as like that type of thing, like how tall you are, that kind of actually determine quite a lot in your life, because it can give like different first impressions to people depending on how tall you are. The shorter, typically men that are shorter, they're not just I think it's actually women have been saying this themselves, that they just want a taller guy for whatever reason, because it's easier to be like feeling dominated by a taller guy than a smaller one. So it's kind of very fascinating. The height thing's so interesting. It's not just that, obviously there's other sorts of like physical characteristics and features that we have. Your face, if you're like born like with Down syndrome, equality is so obviously a lie. We know it intuitively, instinctively, that equality is like a lie. It's a bunch of BS and nonsense. Why is it that if we're all equal, why is it that if we're all equal and all that type of stuff, why is it that we all would get like a score like differently? Why is it that we all why is it that equality and all that type of stuff is so nonsensical? It's so obviously nonsensically stupid, man. The looksism thing is so true. Looksism, the whole thing about incels, I think that's so like factually true. Incels and all that type of stuff, how tall you are, how short you are, that's so important. It's not just about that, there's all these other things as well that come from your genetics. I think that maybe perhaps your intelligence as well. I think even though that's a little bit more debated, contested, IQ, the whole thing about like IQ being genetic or if it's just like your environment that matters. I think it's a bit of both, because if you're born into like an impoverished area, you're not going to develop to your full potential, and you're going to be like pretty much stuck like you're probably not going to be as like capable as you would be if you were born into a better environment. So yeah, so the whole thing about IQ and that being genetics is a little bit contested. I think it still is, like there's some partial truth to that though, just like with all of the other things and all that. I think there's like some partial truth to it. I think there is some partial truth to it and all that type of stuff. The thing about like IQ being genetic and all that, it's a little bit of like a partial truth to that. It's not just about it's not just about your physical features and all that as well. It's also like it's also like your mental characteristics. I think there's like some research proving that there's like your personality, your brain chemistry, and all of that, your neural anatomy and all that type of stuff. There's like a genetic component to that. 100%, I think so. There's actually some proper good research on that as well. That your it's not just your physical features and characteristics. It's also like your mental characteristics, like your personality, your psyche, all of that type of stuff. There's like some evidence to prove that there's like some sort of genetics related to that type of stuff. That's a little bit still a bit dubious. Just like when you talk about like that, like IQ and like all these like mental psychological things being genetic, it's a little bit dubious, because I don't know, because some people say it's like your environment determines that, but some people say it's pretty much your genetics as well. I think it's a bit of both. But anyway, let's not dwell on that. But equality is a lie. I do think so, guys. If you put like two people in the same environment, give them the same opportunities, I think one person, just because of like they might have like some certain advantage about how they were born, they might have been born taller, so they're gonna have that advantage and stuff, and so they're gonna become more successful. Even if both participants are put into the same environment, one person's just gonna get more success. I think that's so true. I think that's like so like true and all that type of stuff. If you get like two people, you put them into like the same environment, I think that one of the people, if they have like a certain advantage just because of how they were born, I think that's going to determine quite a lot. I think that's going to help them just become like a little bit better. Like let's just say you get two participants, some sort of like, let's just say it's like some sort of study being conducted, you put them into the same environment, and stuff like that, and whatever, and it's pretty much they have the same opportunities, the same resources, but just one of the participants is just naturally like a taller. That advantage, that participant's gonna have like that advantage with him, and I think that's gonna kind of like give him some sort of like leeway to becoming a little bit more successful than the other participant who might be a bit shorter and all that type of stuff. So that's like a very basic level example for this. There's like so many other sorts of examples that I could be using and all that type of stuff. But I do think, again, equality is like, because given the same circumstances, the same environment, the same resources, I still think that two people who have different genetics, I think one person, perhaps he might have some sort of advantageous genes, he might be more taller, smarter, whatever. You can see like that person's gonna be more better off and probably more successful than the other person. I don't think equality is even true at all. I think that there is no such thing as equality. I think that everything about our world is like so unequal and all that type of stuff. It's so like naturally, innately unequal. I think that life is just so unfair, unequal. I think that's just how it is. I don't think that you can like try and change that around. I think that certain people are they're probably just predetermined in some slight ways to become just a bit more successful. And you might disagree. You might say, no, it's all about the environment and the opportunities and the economics and all that type of stuff. If two people in the right environment, put them in the right environment, they'll be just as successful as each other. Perhaps that might be like there might be some truth to that, but I still think that if you're born with like certain advantages, like you're taller, you're smarter, you have like more energy just because you're healthy or you don't have any genetic health problems, don't you think that's going to help you become a little bit more successful? I know egalitarianism is something that a lot of us want to believe in and all stuff. It's a lot more comforting to believe that we're all equal and we have like the same it's all about the environment. It's like so much easier to believe in that because it helps us believe in like free will, that we're actually in control of our own destiny. It's not, things aren't predetermined, your genetics aren't the deciding factor. It's just about the environment and how hard you work. I do think that there's some merit to that as well, but I still think that like your genes they're very very freaking important, man. It's not just about like, I don't think it's just about the environment, because that's pretty much what people talk about nowadays. It's just your environment and all that. That's the only thing that matters. It's just the environment and all that type of stuff. It's kind of a little bit To me, that's like so naively stupid. If you think like that, it's just the environment. That's why there is people that all this inequality, like the economic inequality and all that type of stuff. People that have more money than other poor people, it's because they don't have they have the different environments. It's the environments that determine everything. So we need to like redistribute money, and a lot of this also relates to politics and economics. But guys, it's so like you would have to be so naively stupid to think it's just your environment. That's the ultimate. That's everything that matters. That's the only thing that matters is the environment. There's some truth to that, obviously, because if you get two people, you put one of them into like a more Western style environment, more better, like more developed, like prosperous environment. He has like the right food and resources. If you put him into that environment, obviously he's going to be more prosperous. And if you get a different participant and you put him in like a more like poor environment, a poorer country, give him like less resources, less opportunities, obviously he's not going to become successful. So there's like a bit of truth to both of these things, that the environment and your genetics, they both equally matter and all that type of stuff. But so I still do think so that you're it's pretty much, I think that you're I pretty much still think that equality is still a lie. I think that the genetics and all that type of stuff is so important. I mentioned the fact that, if you're more like taller, if you're just naturally taller, people respect you more. I think that's so like true. If you look at I think that's just so true, that if you're taller, people naturally respect you more than if you're shorter and all that type of stuff. I think that if you're taller, people just naturally respect you a lot more. I think so. If you're shorter, I don't think you get respected as much. I don't know. I think that if you're like taller, you just get more respected and all that type of stuff, man. Whereas if you're shorter, people don't really want to respect you too much. I think it's so true though. I think it's like so freaking true, man. That equality is a lie, man. I 100% think so, man. How can it be? How can it not be? How can it not be a lie? Basically, isn't it so obvious that people, that just how you're born, that means quite a lot. You know what I mean? If you're born taller, just got to get more, you're probably going to get more women and all that type of stuff. You're going to get better economic opportunities and whatever, blah blah blah. People are going to like subconsciously respect you more if you're taller. If you're like a midget, you're not going to have the same opportunities as someone that's naturally taller. It's so like, isn't it so like obvious that equality is a lie? Let's also talk like looksism, incelism. That's also very important. Your physical attraction, even though it's kind of a little bit dubious, because what makes someone super physically attractive? It's all like vague. People have their own like personal preferences. Some women might be more attracted to black African men, and some women might like more Caucasian looking men and all that type of stuff. Some women might like East Asian men. It's like there's like a lot of like variety and all that in this. It's like a little bit of variety in it. It's like a bit of a variety in this. It's kind of still, equality is a lie though. I still think that like if you're naturally taller, how are you not going to get more respect subconsciously? It's been pretty much proven. Just like something as trivial as like your height, something that's like so you would not think that would matter at all, your height, but it's still, in terms of like how people perceive you, it's so important how tall you are, regarding like dating as well and all these other sorts of things related to life. See, something is like so trivial, like how tall you are, which is not really in your control. Some people think that if you eat a lot of food, that might help you grow a little bit more, but still it's like pretty much, I think that's all determined by your genes at the end. Equality is a lie, guys. It's pretty freaking obvious, isn't it? But even though a lot of us, we believe in like egalitarianism now, we believe that it's pretty much the environment. That's all that matters is the environment. Nothing else pretty much matters. It's just all about the environment and all that. And I think, is there some truth to that? I think there's like a little bit of truth to that. Obviously your environment matters, but some people think that it's only the environment that matters. It's not about anything else. It's not about your like innate characteristics or anything like that, how you're born and all that. I think that is also very important. I think that gets so overlooked in like our modern day and age. I think it's so easy to overlook your genetics and your like how you're born and all these things that are predetermined for you during your birth. We would so much because it's less comforting. It feels like you don't have as much free will. That's the kind of the issue. People want to believe in like free will. Now we're in control of our lives and our destiny and stuff. So it's just all about the environment and how hard you work and all that. I think that's like so much more comforting. Egalitarianism is so much more comforting. But still, there's like this other reality that how you're born, your mental characteristics, your psychological characteristics, your physical characteristics, all of that is so important as well. That might actually be more important than the environment in some situations and cases. Like again, you get like the environment thing. Let's just say you get 2 participants again in a study, whatever. One of them's just naturally taller. I think that, based just off something as trivial as that, I think that's going to kind of give like some sort of advantage to this person, and he might become more successful because people on a subconscious level might perceive him as being more courageous or something like that, because it's actually been freaking proven, guys. Your height actually does determine quite a lot as well. Something is small, it's like so small, and you wouldn't think that your height would mean anything, but especially regarding like dating, it actually quite honestly does mean a lot of different types of things. Actually, your height actually is quite important, guys. It's something so small like that, your height. You would not think that would mean anything, but it actually kind of does, guys. Your height, it's not just your height, there's all these other sorts of things as well. All these things, man. It's so important that you realize that equality is kind of a lie. I don't think that even if we all get put into the same environment, I think there's still going to be different outcomes for us. Obviously, just because of like how we're born, our physical, mental characteristics, all which gets determined by how you're born when you're in your mother's womb. I think so. To assume, to think that it's not like you're that it's only the environment and all that type of stuff. That's so naively stupid, man. That is so naively stupid to think that's just like the environment. That's the only thing that pretty much matters. That's so stupid. So many people believe in that, man. They believe in like it's just like the environment. That's the only thing that freaking matters. Is the environment. It's not anything else. You just need the right environment to become successful. I think that there's like some truth. Obviously, the environment's important, but if you can't overlook the importance of like your freaking genes, how you're born, your physiological, mental characteristics, and your personality, all of that, which gets determined by your birth. It's because a lot of us, we want to believe in like total free will. If your genes determine something, then that means you don't really have as much free will as you would like to think. And I think it does kind of touch on free will. A lot of us, we just believe in like a very like absurd, like a lot of us, we think that we're so like completely free. We're not determined by anything, which is kind of dumb. Especially our genetics. We're not. It's like we have like this total, complete level of freedom. And I think that's like so naively stupid, guys. Free, like, if you really think about what's that actually mean, free will, like you're not constrained by any sort of like variables, which is kind of obviously a little bit nonsensical because your genetics, man, they determine your mental, psychological characteristics, your physical characteristics as well. So that's not even you can't like, can you use your free will to change your physical characteristics and your mental characteristics? Maybe you could use plastic surgery, but let's just talk about like, what about your height? Can you use your free will to improve your height? Maybe perhaps some people might say yes, you can. Our science hasn't been developed enough yet. I don't know. It's a little bit dubious and tricky, man. Especially these sorts of topics, they're so like complex, and there's so many like nuances that it's hard to like cover properly. But like, again, man, equality, I do still think it's a lie. Again, even if you put the same 2 people in the same environment, I think there's still going to be different outcomes. I think those different outcomes are inevitable, guys. There's always going to be like different outcomes, man. You can't escape that. There's always going to be like different outcomes. Even if you get 2 people, you put them into the same environment, there's still going to be different outcomes. Even if you give them the right opportunities, the same opportunities actually, same resources, there's always going to be like different outcomes just because of how those 2 people are, their characteristics, their physical, mental characteristics, and their personalities, how driven they are, and all that type of stuff, man. I think that still is like, that's going to determine quite a lot. It's so important, man, that you actually think about that. The physical characteristics are actually super important. How tall you are, how short you are, all of that is like so important. that determines quite a lot as well. But it's not, that's like something so much more, that's like so trivial. What's more important is like, obviously, again, you get two people, man, you put them into the same environment, they're gonna have like, there's gonna be like different outcomes and all that type of stuff. I think that's just how it is. You get two people, you put them into the same environment, they're still gonna have like different outcomes just because of how they're born, their characteristics, mental, physical characteristics, all these other sorts of things. Equality is pretty much a lie. It's been proven, again, something like, you look at your height, how tall you are, how short you are, you wouldn't think that would determine anything, but actually it's actually been proven in certain like studies that if you're taller, people just, there's like this, like on a subconscious level, people just respect you more. They see you as being more courageous and more of an alpha leader. If you're shorter, people don't, they see you as being more of a beta in some slight ways. So even something like, again, your height, how tall you are, people, they wouldn't even consider that at all. Some people would think that's like your height, that's not even that important. It's pretty much just your it's pretty much just how your it's just, again, something like your height, that doesn't matter at all. People did, like, we were so like naive. So many people are so stupid and naive to think that you're something like that there is no such thing as like you're like to think that we're all, if given the same environment, we'll all have the same outcomes. That's so stupid. I think because if you that type of like because we pretty much, especially if you're from Europe or America, we pretty much all live in sort of like the same environment, but you can see that there's so many different sorts of outcomes. Some people just become way more successful just because of how they are, just because they have these like certain advantages. They have like a natural good singing voice, so they become great musicians and singers, and they just become way more wealthy and successful than someone else. Like we all know, like, especially when you were in like school, we were all like in the same classroom, but certain people just became way more. Like, I actually wonder, like, if you still remember like the people from your school, this will be like such an interesting like experiment, a thought exercise as well. Think about like where they are in life now. I think some of them are probably gonna be way ahead of like the others. I think that there's some of the people that you used to know in school, some of them are probably way ahead of you as well, probably, or they're probably ahead of like each other in some slight ways. Yeah, even you were all in the same sort of classroom, but like some of you like went to like these higher levels of life, and some of you are probably still like stuck on the lower levels. God damn, man. Equality is a freaking lie, man. It's always, we think that it's like the environment, that's like the only thing that freaking matters is the environment. If everyone has the same environment, the outcomes will pretty much be the same. I don't think that's the case, and I think even if the environment, if you normalize the environment and you put everyone into the same environment, there's still gonna be different outcomes, just because people are like naturally like different. We're born differently and all that type of stuff. We have like different characteristics, physical, mental characteristics, and all that. So to think that if you just normalize it's all the environment, that's the only thing that matters. If you think like that, you're so naively stupid, guys. You're so dumb. If you think that it's only the environment that means anything, the environment, that's the only thing that pretty much determines everything. That's so naively stupid, man. If you think that your environment, that's the only thing that determines everything, it's kind of stupid, man. Given the same environment, the same resources, we would all be on the same level. That's so dumb. So many people believe that. It's so naive and stupid. Because that type of this sort of experiment's already been done. Think about like when you were in school. It's pretty much you all had the same. I think even in like school, primary school, because I'm in the UK. But if you were like from school, they even give you like the same like nutritional. When you're in school, you get like lunch meals and all that made for you, pre-prepared. We all get put into the same classroom, same level of education, resources and all that, but still people perform differently even in school. And when they get out of school, they still perform differently, even though they were given the same opportunities. And I should tell you something, that it's not just the environment, it's also all these other things as well that are very, very important, like your physical, mental characteristics, your psychological profile, your personality, which is also very important, how tall you are, which is actually, it's been proven in some certain studies, that's actually very important as well. Like if you're tall or short, actually that on a subconscious level, people, like if you're more taller, people perceive you as being more courageous, more of an alpha. If you're shorter, people they see you in a lesser way in some slight ways. So I think equality is pretty much a lie. It's not, even though I think that some people, I think that certain people are just born with some like advantages in that, and gives them so much more leeway. in life, again using like the example of height, if you're taller, it's so much easier to attract women. I think that's actually been certainly in some certain studies has been proven, like something is like trivial, like your height, the taller you are, it's probably, women are probably gonna like, because you know, I actually was using Tinder as well and stuff like that, and I was like trying to get girls on Tinder, and then some girls, they said that you have to be 6 foot or something like that. If like certain women, they would not date you if like you're like below a certain height. If you're like short, they wouldn't date you and stuff like that. If you're like sort of like a midget, some women, that just based off something as trivial as like how tall you are, certain women, that like throws certain women off. So you can see even in that type of way, in that regard, that it's like even something is like your height, which is like, you can't really control your height. Maybe perhaps if like we develop our science enough, you can inject yourself with something and you can get taller, but that's like very far-fetched right now. But still, it's been proven though, like your height, your physiological characteristics, that is like on a subconscious level, people perceive you differently depending on how tall you are, how you look, and all that type of stuff, man. That's so important. Just like something like that, how tall you are and all that type of stuff. That determines quite a lot, man. How tall you are. How you look, all that is so freaking important. It's actually more important than you would like to think. Again, a lot of us, we believe in like egalitarianism and all that type of stuff. It's just about the environment. That's the only thing that freaking matters, the environment. Given the same environment, we would perform the same. We would all be on the same level. We would have the same outcomes. Nothing would be different about our lives. Everything will be like pretty much similar if we get given the same environment, the same resources. Obviously, that's a bunch of nonsense, a bunch of bollocks, because it's not just the environment, guys. I think so. I think that's also the freaking how you're born, man. I think it's like your characteristics, your mental, physical characteristics, your profile, and your personality. All of that determines so much, guys, in your life. To think that's just your environment, which is so dumb. It's been proven, even though it's actually been proven in so many studies, that even if you give people the same environment, there's still gonna be different outcomes, man. That should tell you quite a lot. Even if people have the same environment, there's still gonna be different outcomes, just because like certain people, they get born with certain advantages, certain people get born with the different disadvantages. Like you might have like some sort of mental health problem, or you might have like a genetic health problem or something. You might have like some sort of like disability. That's gonna like that's gonna like limit how successful you can become compared to someone who doesn't have that issue. You can see like it's like equality is so nonsensical. It's so stupid that people, they believe in like such an extreme form of like egalitarianism. Where does that come from? This like extreme like form of egalitarianism, that if people get put into the same environment, it will be the same outcome. It's so dumb, man. It's so trivially stupid. I don't know where that comes from, this extreme egalitarianism. Even if you're like a religious person, you believe in like free will, God gave us free will. Even in like the I think so in the in the Quran, in the Bible, there's like mentions of like some people are just blessed by God. So, you know, even there's like even in the Bible, in the Quran, there's not a lot of equality. Actually, there is no equality, especially in the Bible. You know, like Jesus in the Bible says that slaves should obey their masters. So where's the equality in that? See, even in the Bible, it's kind of stupid. That equality thing is like so stupidly, it's so absurd, it's so obviously nonsensical. That equality is obviously a lie. Even if people get put into the same little environment, there's the outcomes. I think there's always gonna be like different outcomes, just because certain people, how you're born, your characteristics, your mental, physical, and all that characteristics, your personality, how driven you are, your emotions, and all that. That's like so important, man. So many people don't appreciate how important that is. How important that is, like your physical, mental characteristics, how you're born. That is so important, guys. People think, they always like focus on like, it's pretty much just your genetics. That's what determines everything. That's the only thing that determines. That's the only thing that matters is the only thing that matters is your environment, not your genetics. Obviously, it's a bit of both. I'm not gonna say that it's 100% your genetics. The environment doesn't matter. Well, it's always gonna be a bit of both. That's like life. It's always like a grey area. It's always gonna be like this sort of greyness between these two like extremes. Like it's your environment or it's your genetics. It's always gonna be like some sort of greyness to this, and it's always gonna be more in the center of it all. You don't want to be like some type of extreme retard and kind of like focus on one of these two sorts of things. There's always a grey area, obviously. I still 100% think so, guys. That again, but some people, that it's extreme egalitarianism. It's like always, it's just your environment. That's the only thing that matters. It's so dumb if you think like that. To think that it's just your environment. That's the only determining factor. That's the only deciding factor, is the environment. Nothing else is relevant. If you believe that, if you truly, honestly believe that, you're probably going to be so stupidly naive. If you honestly, truly believe that, it's that. It's just your. If you truly believe that, it's just like the environment. That's the only thing that matters. You're going to be in for such a horrible surprise. And we even noticed, I remember when you were in school, some people were just better off. Some people had higher grades. Other people were more or less failures. There was like winners and losers even in school. Especially like competitions in school, like sports events and all that type of stuff. Some people were just better off. Other people were like losers and all that. Even in school, you knew this like intuitively, instinctively. So you can see that it's a bit, it can't just be one or the other. It's obviously there's a grey area. But I mean, even in school, especially regarding, I think sports events, like certain people are just faster and stronger. I remember when I was in like primary school, some black kid, so he was like so much more faster than everyone else around him. He's had that natural speed advantage. Like obviously Usain Bolt. I think like some African populations, they actually have that sort of genetic advantage where they're just naturally faster. They're naturally faster and stuff, just because they have that speed. I don't know, but just because of their genetics and all that type of stuff. But still, guys, it's so important that you think about this so carefully. Equality, it is pretty much a lie. I think it's been proven so many different times that even with the same environment, there's still going to be different outcomes. That should say everything to you, just because of how people are naturally, just because how people are, their mental characteristics, their physical characteristics, all of that just because of that. I think that's so just based off something trivial like that, just because of how people are born. That's so determining of everything in the end. Some again, people that think it's they believe in some extreme form of egalitarianism. It's just all about the environment. That's the only thing that matters in the end. I think that's so stupid if you believe like that. If you think like that and all that type of stuff, man. If you think that's just the environment, that's the only thing that determines everything in the end, is the environment and all that. It's kind of naive. It's the environment's important, but there's I think it's still your genes and all that. I think that's so much. I think that's actually just as important, man. Your genetics and all that, how you're born, your physiological, mental characteristics, your personality type. All of that is so determining as well. It's been proven again in studies, certain people, just because of they perhaps might be naturally taller, that allows them to become a little bit more successful in all these different sorts of complex situations in life. In a business environment, people just see them as being more courageous just because they're more taller. That on a subconscious level, that makes people perceive them as being more courageous, more alpha-like, and all that. It's all these sorts of things. It's so fascinating to think about this, guys. To think like this, to think about these sorts of issues. To think about these topics as well. It's obviously, even though egalitarianism, believing in equality, that's actually very important. I'm not saying that we should judge people just because of how they're born. I don't think you should do that. I think we should be given the same environment, the same opportunities and all that. But still, there's always going to be different outcomes. That's what I'm saying. If you get a classroom full of students, if some of those students become more successful later on in life, that you can't just say that's just because they were they had actually, maybe perhaps you can say it's because they were privileged, because they had the right sort of genetics and upbringing. Perhaps, I don't know, maybe I'm being kind of a little bit of a dumbass, but still, equality I do think it's pretty much a lie, man. I think that just naturally how you're born and how you are naturally, that determines quite a lot in the end. That determines whether or not you're going to make it or break or not. Your natural appearance, your natural characteristics, that's quite important in the end as well. I think so, guys. But obviously it's a little bit dubious. It's a grey area to this. I think there's always going to be a greyness. Is it your environment or is it your genetics? It's always a greyness to this, guys. I think obviously it's a bit of both. Obviously you can't just say it's one or the other. It's there's always going to be a greyness to this. But I think that people that think that you're to think that your genetics aren't important at all is kind of naive. But obviously your environment's still important as well. It's a bit of both, but I still think that even if given the same resources and opportunities, the same environment, there's still going to be different outcomes just because of how you're born, your natural characteristics, your natural psyche, how you naturally are. That's going to determine like a different outcome, even if you get given the same opportunities in the environment and all that. Just because of how you're born, your genetics, your physical characteristics, your mental characteristics, even if you get put into the same environment, you're going to be different. You're going to have different outcomes anyway. So that's still something to think about, though. The video's about to end. Really carefully think about it. So carefully, guys. That's about it.